Welcome to our channel, Pulse Pop TV Real Stories. We are going to share about World War II documentary. Let's start it. The Road to Catastrophe. Why World War II was inevitable. Opening. Date, September 1st, 1939, 4:45 a.m. Dawn breaks over the Baltic Sea. The battleship Schleswig-Holstein opens fire. The first shells strike the Polish military depot at Westerplatte in the free city of Danzig. At the same moment, German planes attack targets across Poland, and the town of Wielun becomes the first to be carpet-bombed. The world doesn't know it yet, but a conflict has begun that will claim the lives of 70 to 85 million people, more than half of them civilians. But this moment, this sunrise bombardment, didn't happen by accident. It was 20 years in the making. This is the story of how the world sleepwalked into the deadliest war in human history. A story of broken treaties and burning resentments, of democratic nations that chose hope over vigilance, of one man's ambition meeting an entire continent's exhaustion. This is the story of World War II and how it became inevitable. Act 1. The Seeds of Vengeance. June 28, 1919. The Palace of Versailles. 5 years after an assassin's bullet in Sarajevo ignited the First World War, world leaders gather in the Gilded Hall of Mirrors. They've come to sign a peace treaty. But peace is not what they're creating. The Treaty of Versailles forces Germany to accept responsibility for starting World War I, strips the nation of territory, disarms its military, and demands massive reparation payments. The final sum: 132 billion gold Reichmarks, the equivalent of 32 billion US dollars. Germany loses territory, military capacity, and is forced to accept war guilt. All while the German people had not been invited to participate in the peace conference. French Marshal Ferdinand Foch watches the signing. His words are prophetic. This is not peace. It is an armistice for 20 years. He's off by only 65 days. The German reaction. In Germany, the treaty is viewed as a diktat, a dictated peace, and the representatives who sign it are branded November criminals by right-wing parties. Imagine it. You're a German citizen in 1919. Your sons died in the trenches. Your economy is in ruins. You genuinely believed your military was winning, until suddenly, it wasn't. Now foreign powers are stripping away your provinces, limiting your army to 100,000 men, and demanding you pay for a war you didn't think you started. The loss of territory means an erasure of the German Empire that Otto von Bismarck had established. The reality of defeat and the fragmentation of the German Empire are humiliating. Article 231, the War Guilt Clause, holds Germany completely responsible for starting World War I. This single clause becomes a gift to German nationalism. Every party in Germany, from communists on the extreme left to Hitler's National Socialists on the extreme right, agrees. The Versailles Treaty is unjust and unacceptable. The treaty doesn't just end a war. It plants the seeds for another one. Act 2. The Rise of a Dictator. November 1923, Munich Beer Hall. A failed artist turned political agitator attempts a coup. His name is Adolf Hitler. The Nazi Party attempts to overthrow the government using violence, but the coup fails and Hitler is imprisoned. But here's what matters. In prison, Hitler learns a lesson. Force alone won't work. The Nazi Party changes strategy. They begin competing in elections to try to undermine German democracy from within. For years, it doesn't work. In May 1928, the Nazis receive only 2.6% of the vote. At the time, the party has about 100,000 members. They're a fringe movement. Radical. Marginal. Unimportant. Then, everything changes. October 1929. The Great Depression hits. The Wall Street crash sends shockwaves across the Atlantic. Germany is particularly badly affected because of its dependence on American loans from 1924 onwards. As loans are recalled, investment in business is reduced. Wages fall by 39% between 1929 and 1932. People in full-time employment dropped from 20 million in 1929 to just over 11 million in 1933. Millions of Germans lose their jobs. The country enters both an economic and political crisis. Cabinets keep falling. New elections are held constantly. It seems impossible to form a majority government. Into this chaos steps Hitler with a message. He blames the Weimar Republic. He blames Jewish financiers. He blames the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler pledges to restore prosperity, create civil order by crushing strikes and demonstrations, eliminate the influence of Jewish financiers, and make the fatherland a world power again. The Nazi Party starts to gain significant numbers of votes in national elections beginning in September 1930. By July 1932, the Nazis become the largest party in the Reichstag with 230 seats and 37.3% of the vote. But here's the crucial detail. Hitler doesn't seize power. He's given it. January 30th, 1933. The appointment. German President Paul von Hindenburg appoints Hitler Chancellor. Conservative politicians believe they can control him. They want to use the Nazi Party's popularity for their own purposes. They mistakenly believe they can control Hitler. They're catastrophically wrong. February 27th, 1933. The Reichstag burns guards notice flames blazing through the roof of the Parliament building. They overpower the suspected arsonist, a Dutch communist named Marinus van der Lubbe. Nazi leadership Hermann Göring calls out, "This is the beginning of the communist revolt. They will start their attack now." Whether the Nazis set the fire or simply exploited it doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next. Hitler convinces President von Hindenburg to pass the Reichstag fire decree, which severely curtails civil liberties and gives Hitler emergency powers. On March 23, 1933, the Reichstag passes the Enabling Act, which enables Hitler's government to issue decrees independently of the Reichstag and presidency. Hitler effectively assumes dictatorial powers. By July, Germany becomes a single-party state. All existing political parties are banned. Democracy in Germany is dead, and Europe is about to pay the price. Act 3. The March to War. March 7th, 1936. The Rhineland. In the 1925 Treaty of Locarno, Germany had recognized the demilitarization of the Rhineland. On March 7th, 1936, however, Hitler repudiates this agreement and orders German armed forces into the demilitarized Rhineland. Hitler's action brings condemnation from Britain and France, but neither nation intervenes. This is the first test, and Hitler learns he can get away with it. March 12th, 1938. The Anschluss. After prolonged propaganda inside Austria, German troops enter the country on March 12, 1938, receiving enthusiastic support from most of the population. Austria is incorporated into Germany the following day. The Anschluss is Nazi Germany's first act of territorial aggression and expansion. It violates both the Treaty of Versailles and the Treaty of Saint-Germain, which expressly forbade the unification of Austria and Germany. Again, the international community does nothing. Their acceptance of the Anschluss is a significant act of appeasement. It allows Adolf Hitler to continue his expansionary policies unchecked. September 1938, the Sudetenland crisis. Hitler turns his attention to Czechoslovakia, specifically the Sudetenland, a border region with a large ethnic German population. Hitler instructs Sudeten German leaders to raise demands unacceptable to the Czechoslovak government. The governments of France, the United Kingdom, and Czechoslovakia are set on avoiding war at any cost. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain contends that Sudeten German grievances are justified and believes Hitler's intentions are limited. On September 26, 1938, Hitler gives a speech in Berlin and declares that the Sudetenland is the last territorial demand I have to make in Europe. September 29th to 30th, 1938, the Munich Agreement. Four men meet in Munich: Hitler, Mussolini, British Prime Minister Chamberlain, and French Prime Minister Daladier. Czechoslovakia is not invited to the meeting about its own future. In Munich, Chamberlain and the others agree to the cession of the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia to Germany, effective October 1st. In exchange, Hitler renounces any claims to the rest of Czechoslovakia. The British, French, and Italians blatantly disregard Czechoslovakia's sovereignty in the name of avoiding war. The Munich Agreement is Britain's most significant act of appeasement to date. Chamberlain returns to London triumphant. He tells the British public he has achieved peace with honor. I believe it is peace for our time. But Winston Churchill sees it differently. Churchill declares, "You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war. The failure of appeasement. Why did democratic nations choose appeasement? The reasons are painfully human. Chamberlain and the British people were desperate to avoid the slaughter of another world war. Britain was overstretched policing its empire and could not afford major rearmament. Its main ally, France, was seriously weakened. The memory of the First World War haunted them. Britain had suffered greatly between 1914 and 1918, transforming from a creditor nation to a debtor nation. Chamberlain felt that avoiding another European conflict should be the key element of Britain's foreign policy. At the time, the Munich Agreement was widely popular in Britain. Huge crowds greeted Chamberlain on his arrival back from Munich, with it generally perceived as a diplomatic victory. But hope is not a strategy. March 15, 1939, Hitler breaks his promise. Just 6 months after agreeing to the Munich Pact, Hitler invades and occupies the rest of Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain feels betrayed by the Nazi seizure of Czechoslovakia. He realizes his policy of appeasement toward Hitler has failed and begins to take a much harder line against Germany. He immediately mobilizes British armed forces to a war footing, and France does the same. The Munich Agreement facilitates the German takeover of Czechoslovakia and causes Hitler to believe the Western Allies will not risk war over Poland. Hitler famously declares, "I saw my enemies in Munich, and they are worms." Act 4, the final crisis. August 23, 1939. The Nazi-Soviet Pact. Here's where things get truly shocking. Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. They agree not to attack each other and to remain neutral if attacked by a third power. Secret clauses divide up countries into respective spheres of influence in Central and Eastern Europe, including a partitioning of Poland. Two ideological enemies, fascism and communism, make a deal to carve up Eastern Europe. The pact ensures that Germany can invade Poland without fear of Soviet intervention, setting the stage for the conflict. Late August 1939, the world holds its breath. Britain and France have finally drawn a line. Convinced that Hitler will not negotiate in good faith, Britain and France guarantee the integrity of Polish territory against German aggression. Britain and France have promised military assistance to Poland if it is attacked by Germany. Hitler doesn't believe them. He's gotten away with everything else. The Rhineland, Austria, Czechoslovakia. Why would Poland be different? September 1st, 1939, 4:45 a.m. The invasion. We return to where we began. Dawn over the Baltic Sea. The Schleswig-Holstein opens fire. German forces pass the Polish border in great numbers from north and south, together with Slovak units. Adolf Hitler cites alleged Polish border attacks during the false flag Operation Himmler as a reason for war in his September 1st Reichstag speech. September 3rd, 1939, 11:15 a.m. The declaration British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain announces to the public that Britain is at war with Germany. France follows hours later. Adolf Hitler's invasion of Poland drives Great Britain and France to declare war on Germany, marking the beginning of World War II. The invasion of Poland becomes the immediate cause of the Second World War. Epilogue. The lessons of catastrophe of World War II. For 6 long years, the world was on fire. Cities were destroyed, millions of people died, and families everywhere were torn apart. More than 70 million lives were lost, men, women, and children. But this terrible war did not start suddenly. Its roots went back to the end of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles left Germany poor, weak, and angry. People felt humiliated and wanted revenge. This anger helped Adolf Hitler rise to power. He promised to make Germany strong again, and many believed him. Other countries, tired of fighting, tried to keep peace by giving him what he wanted. But every time they gave in, Hitler grew bolder. When Germany attacked Poland on September 1st, 1939, at 4:45 a.m., the world could no longer stay silent. World War II had begun. What followed was destruction, suffering, and the loss of hope. After the war, the world learned a hard lesson. Peace built on fear and weakness cannot last. Ignoring danger only makes it grow. That is why new organizations, like the United Nations, were created to help nations talk instead of fight. The greatest lesson of all: real peace needs courage, not just silence.